wheels to never ever have enough time to play at all. You know everybody wants to walk in someone else's shoes. Everyone's forgotten.
Track work is complete. Probably some of the best track work I've done. Really slowed down, took my time, cut and filed, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. Say my only issue that I might run into, there's a little dip in the track right through here. Now it's nothing huge. I don't think it's going to cause me any problems, but that's really the only thing that I'm even slightly concerned about as far as the integrity of the track goes. I've got it set up right now to where every track, if need be, can be block detected. My main line that runs through here, the one closest to the fascia, I've got it divided right in here so that will be two separate blocks. And then of course each individual turnout will also be a block of its own, so I can work those with my LCC and or JMRI. I don't know that I'm going to use every track as its own block, but one of the things that I'm considering doing, is making something happen. Like what I'm thinking right now is this yard area here at Lale & Sons. When a train comes in with a resistor on the wheels and comes in to this track right here, it detects it, and maybe some lights come on for the yard or something along that. I don't know exactly what all I'm going to do, but I'm going to have the ability to do it if I want to. Now, as far as what I'm going to do with the scenery, I'm going to wire everything first. I'm going to get that all set up, and then once I get it wired, I plan on building probably these 3 or 4 buildings right here, bang, 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 back to back. I will complete Lale & Sons first, I think, because that's been kind of an ongoing process. But once I get that, I've probably got a weekend left in that, and I'll be finished with what I'm going to do with it. But I'm thinking this area right here, from the edge here to just back behind these 3 buildings, is go ahead and insert my river that I lost from the front of the layout. If I do it right, maybe that river will come in and then go back behind and lose sight of it through some trees, so it appears that there's a river going off into the distance somewhere, but you can't actually see it because of the buildings and the trees. Have a nice scene with some wildlife or something like that. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. It's time to start wiring. So what I've done, I put some terminal strips out there. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 terminal strips. Those will be collection points for 4 feeder wire drops each. The idea is that I can collect, 4 groups of 2 from each of the track sections and or the turnout switch, and then since they'll be close together at the same point where my bus wires are, the terminal strip, I can come from there with my CT coils that are going to go back to my block occupancy detector board. And I'll get more into that when I actually get it closer and ready to actually start wiring. But that's going to be the first thing I do, is get my feeders put in. That's going to be the first step. Getting them soldered to the rails and run through the top to the bottom of the layout. After I do that, I'm going to finish buttoning up my end caps here with my grab irons. And I'm also going to create a jig where I can take the layout down and put it on a jig that I can then turn the whole thing upside down to wire, so that I'm not up underneath the sucker with my arms in the air and all the blood rushing from your fingertips down to your toes and your hands going to sleep. Because if you've ever wired a layout, that's what happens, and it gets frustrating. So I thought, since this is a module, all I will have to do is take my bottom rail off here, unbolt it here, these legs right here, then very gently drop this end down to the ground, go back over here, take that set of legs off, very gently drop that onto the ground, and then be able to lift one end or the other up onto my jig that's going to allow me to turn it upside down. I'll drill a single hole in this piece of wood here back behind where my grab iron is, so I can take the grab irons off, and that hole, I'll run a 3/8 bolt through that. And because I believe it's going to be top heavy, you know, I've got plywood up there, so it's going to be top heavy, and it's going to want to flip over and stay over anyway. So that's my plan. We'll see how that works. Hopefully I won't end up spending 3 days building the jig, because that's not really what I want to do, but I think it will save me a lot of time with wiring, and I think I'll end up with cleaner wiring at the end. Got all my drops made, holes drilled down through. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. Just thought I'd go ahead and show what my process is. So if I can get this to focus, what I do is I use solid strand wire, and I bend about 1/4 of an inch to be parallel with the rail, and then I make another smaller dog leg towards the rail. And that will, if I can get it in there right, it'll kind of wedge itself between the hole that you've drilled and the web of the rail, and then you kind of have a free hand to solder with. That's how I do it. So what I'm going to do now is go through. I've got all of the wires have got just a little bit of flux on top of them. I'm going to go through, and the rails. The rails have just a little bit of flux as well. I'm going to go through and tin all of the wires and the rail on this side of the layout. And then I'm going to go ahead and solder all of the white drops. And then I will move the layout out away from the wall, take off my backdrop frame, and then solder all the blue wire. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, the Layout Flip-O-Matic. It's not exactly pretty. Please refrain from scathing comments about my construction techniques, but it does work. I can flip my layout back and forth from working on the bottom side to working on the top side as necessary. Just got to create some feet when I flip it over to, because it is top heavy. but it's going to work for my purposes. Now, as far as the process of wiring, I'm going to point out full disclosure on a couple of stupid mistakes. I don't know if you can see it, but right here where my tortoises are, the wire's sticking out from underneath there. Because I insulated pretty much everything to include the turnouts, I had to bring drops down from the turnouts, and I wasn't thinking when I did that, and I brought my drops down too close to the throw bar. And so now I'm going to have to flip it over, desolder those wires, and move them to a different location so that my tortoises actually fit. I did that in 4 different places. Those 2 right there, and then again this one, which I don't know, that one might work. It's real close. And then this one over here for sure is not going to work. Now, I had very romantic views of how all my wiring was going to progress, everything at 90-degree angles and making perfect sense, and anybody looking at it would go, oh, wow, that's really, really nice. But as I kind of start looking at all my different components and how they're going to work together, I don't think I'm going to get that lucky. I think it's still going to kind of look like a bowl of spaghetti to a certain degree. I will minimize that as much as possible as I go forward. But I am using LCC, and here are some of the components. I've got a stall motor driver, which that will work 8 tortoise slow motion switches. I've got 7, so that's perfect. And then just to the right of that is my block occupancy detector. That's capable of occupying 8 different blocks. I've got another one of those on the way because I'm going to have just 7 blocks alone with just the turnouts. So, and I plan on doing approximately 8 more beyond just the turnouts. And the way that's going to work, come back over here, these red nodules there that you see, those are CT coils. That's what's going to relay the fact that something is on the track. And they take a pair of wires, so you can see there's 4 there, so I need 8 wires. This stuff here, data communication cable, I don't know, it's 8 pairs of wires. I don't remember exactly what it is, but that works out perfectly. One run of that will equal 4 of those, and I strategically tried to make all of my locations where there would be 4 different areas. So each location will have 4 pairs coming from it, and then going back to the 2 block occupancy detectors. Then I've got an LCC tower controller. I've actually have 2 of those. One is going to control the push buttons and the lights for the panel, and then the other one will relay the information from the block occupancy detector. It's a lot to try and figure out, and I've never done this before, but it's going to be an adventure, and I promise I will show all of my mistakes as I go. I've got the DCC wiring is complete. Now, I don't have my controller in yet, but all of the blue and white wiring will be DCC. And you can see my bus is going to run along what is the back side of the layout. And then I've got 5, I don't know, spider collectors, I guess. But that's where the track where the feeder wires are coming down from the track are going in to those collectors, and then they're picking up power from the bus. So I've got 5 of those locations. And the way I did that is, so I've got one position takes the bus wire in, and then I've got 4 positions that go to the track feeders, leaving me 1 position open. The open position will go to the tortoise switches to where it will flip the polarity as needed when you flip the switch on the tortoise. So that's my plan there. Now, I did attempt to go ahead and put my tortoises in. My plan was to go ahead and put them in and get them wired up and check each as I went. And I have real problems with them because I've got 1-inch foam and 1/2-inch plywood. The only wire I had was 0.032 wire, and it's just not heavy enough gauge to actually throw the switch points on the turnout because it's just not stiff enough. So I had to order some more wire. I went with 0.39. I hope that works. If it doesn't, then I hope that I didn't do all of this work to find out that I can't actually make use of the tortoise with a wire from the bottom side of the layout. Because that will be very upsetting, because all of my push buttons are designed to throw tortoises. So I've got that on hold for now. This particular component here, that's a Tam Valley frog juicer. It's a hex juicer. It can juice up to 6 different frogs. I actually am not planning on using that, but I thought, since I can't do the tortoises at this particular point in time, I do want to go ahead and check all of my wiring with my DCC before I go any further forward with the LCC. The Payco switches I have on the top side, they'll work like Insel frogs. I don't have to have any polarity thrown on the frogs on them at this point. But my dual gauge turnout up there, it is going to need to have the polarity swapped on it when you throw it. So I've just got that in there temporary to handle that for me. So I think that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to use the Flip-O-Matic and turn the railroad right side up. Go ahead and put in my DCC command controller somewhere temporarily. I'm still on the fence of where exactly that's going to fit in with everything else I've got going. Right now I'm thinking it's going to be on the far right hand side there. Again, it's a work in progress, but I will be back after I flip it over and see if I can actually get some trains to move. As you can see, I've got it kipped up on the top side here. I just got finished running a time saver problem, which starts with 7 cars, and there's specific places where you have to spot what you've got in your train and specific tracks, and then you count your number of moves, and the fewer number of the moves, the better. I didn't count mine, but that's okay. All I will say is that I did everything. I probably stopped and started and switched every track at least 10 times, and my train did not stall a single time. The track work is very good. I'm very pleased with it. And probably I'll go ahead and leave it like this for the rest of the week. It's Sunday night. I'll get an order in sometime this week of a few other things I need, and then next weekend I will continue with wiring the LCC.
Never have enough time to play at all. You know everybody wants to walk in someone else's